Hello, Walter McKone here. So this was the first day of our sort of cranial course. What I try and do in the first day is present this philosophical approach, because actually we're putting philosophy into practice, or philosophy arising out of practice. It's the doing. First thing important to do is to try and loosen up, not put down, not chuck out, but loosen up this sort of Cartesian approach as a dominant way. So what I tend to do is take people through the process of the arising of the Cartesian approach, right from Pythagoras, when Pythagoras was looking at numbers as a moral and ethical issue rather than from a quantitative issue. That I may have mentioned before that odd numbers are male, even numbers are female. So 3 is male, 2 is female, so 2 times 3 equals 6, and 6 is marriage. There you go. So that's how Pythagoras did it. And this whole thing about looking at anything in nature as being female, and by being female it was evil, basically. That's the way Pythagoras saw it. So basically it was like the idea which has underpinned Western culture ever since, through subsequent people like Plato and Descartes, was to see nature as something that needs to be substituted, needs to be controlled. I think even Francis Bacon was along those lines in the sort of 17th century. So it's no good me trying to introduce so-called dynamic, holistic ideas if we haven't exposed the origin of present-day ideas in philosophy. So, and how we look at the body as a sum of parts, about being attentive to things. So if you, for example, just treat fascia, then that actually becomes a contradiction, because that's not possible at all, because the body doesn't know that. You may think it, and it's you that's making it happen. And in both cases, both the Cartesian system with mathematics and separateness and fragmentation, you're making it happen. And the same as in the organic way or the dynamic way, you're also making it happen. But both come from different backgrounds. Both are in the history of science and deep within the history of science. So the first thing to do is try and do is get my students to recognize how they're thinking, not what they're thinking, how they're thinking. Because if I show you on the screen a parietal bone or a sphenoid and show you lines showing where it moves, yeah, you're quite happy with that. It's because you're already thinking that, but you're not aware of thinking that in this sort of Cartesian fashion. To be able to deepen the experience of understanding, which is where we're trying to go by Sunday, 2 days' time, and that understanding leading to meaning, and that meaning leading to judgment, is to work on the person themselves, to deepen that experience, to increase their self-awareness. Because at the end of the day, you're trying to make the patient better. And to be able to recognise that it's a bit like walking through a forest. If you try and run straight through a forest along sort of Cartesian coordinates, which are the X, Y, Z coordinates and with arrows going around, you're not going to get very far in the forest. You're going to hit something. So it's a bit like letting the forest dictate your movement. So the same as with the patient. The patient will dictate my movement, not me impose myself. So I'm being more attentive rather than intentive. And also I'm not being passive. By being attentive, I'm letting the patient's form change me. So I have to have a degree of inner flexibility. So we looked at all this today as an introduction. And then tomorrow, obviously, we're going to go through the elements, what I call the elements, which are anatomy, trauma to the head or to the body, and how it affects the whole skull and all the other tissues. But again, if you want to see deeper into the patient, you've actually got to be more flexible in yourself and attentive rather than passive. It's a bit like saying, instead of seeing motion in the patient, you're being in motion. Let's get that right. So instead of seeing motion in the patient, you're being it to be in motion. So it's a bit like jumping on a moving vehicle or jumping on something that's moving already. Where you place your attention is important, and how you place your attention. So if you imagine I'm looking into a stream and I can see my reflection in the stream, at the point I make a judgment about putting my hand into the water to touch the water at that point that I saw earlier on, by the time I lean forward to do that, it's gone. So I end up palpating the end of the process, not the process itself. To do that, I have to be slightly upstream. So if I want to affect what's in front of me now and alter my reflection in the water, I can put my hand upstream. So that metaphor of putting a hand upstream is actually you backing off, you being more flexible. So by backing off, but not being passive, you're trying to catch yourself in the act of palpation. So we covered that broadly today in relation to Western philosophy, and the fact that Western philosophy hates personal experience, hates the intuitive. I think that's about it really. So tomorrow we're going to go into more depth as what I call the elements of cranial work, which is the structure, the damage, looking at conjunctivitis, looking at earache, looking at upper respiratory tract infections. And then by Sunday we'll be palpating that in a way in which we're joining the process that ends in the disorder or joining the process that ends in the physical form. And also the way in which we look at bones. Bones are the movement, not the joints themselves. We tend to look at the joints and then bypass that. But A.J. Still was looking at things from an evolutionary point of view. So the bones are the movement. The form and the essence of the bone itself is moving. It's been moving for millions of years. So we'll see how tomorrow opens up. I hope that helps.